Welcome to the Healing Centered Conversations podcast, where we create space for conversations that heal. I'm your host, Dr. Byron McClure, a nationally certified school psychologist. I, along with our special guests, will give you insight to promote collective healing by putting people first. Through weekly conversations with educators, psychologists, and healers, we'll discuss ways to heal, thrive, and live your best life. This is the Healing Center Conversations podcast. Welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Byron McClure, and we have in the building the executive director, the founder, the amazing leader of School Psych Sistas. Welcome to the Healing Center Conversations podcast, Kierra Fulmore. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, everybody. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely. Okay, so for the listeners who might not be familiar with you, break it down. Who is Kierra Fulmore?
Well, Kierra is a lot of things, but in this world, in this space, Kierra is someone who decided to just create a space for women of color in the field of school psychology. She's someone who was previously a school psychologist and needed support, realized that we didn't really have that support and that aid, and decided to just, create a space for people to just thrive and be vulnerable about difficult subjects and what they were going through and how they navigated the field of school psychology. Because it definitely, you can feel isolated and siloed sometimes, which is what I was feeling. So I know other women were feeling the same way and decided to create that platform.
Yeah, so break it down for us, because you are the executive director and founder and the visionary behind School Psych Sistas. What was the inspiration behind creating this platform?
I think for me, I'll honestly tell you how it happened. And I was sitting in, my apartment one day, and I was just muddling over something. It was an ethical dilemma, obviously, with the school. And I was contacting everybody I could in my phone, and they were not available. But I had strong women in my phone, strong people who helped me through a lot. But I only had, a couple, and they were gone at the point. So I was like, I wonder if I could do something where it could be like on-demand advice, on-demand consultation. But I don't need it just to be with anybody. I need it to be with people who kind of identify in the way that I do. Not to skew their perspective, but I knew that they could get it in a deeper way. And that's how the Facebook page was born in 2017. And in 2020, I think I was really being pushed to do more with the page. And that's how in 2021, School Psych Sistas, the nonprofit organization, was born and birthed.
Awesome. And we're going to get more into the nonprofit in a little bit. And so you found this nonprofit, School Psych Sistas. Before that, or I guess simultaneously, you were a practicing school psychologist. Mm-hmm. And I heard you mention that you were formerly a school psychologist. You'll always be a school psychologist at heart,
yeah,
right? It's in your heart.
Just at heart. Yes.
But the day-to-day, that might look a little different. So I would love for you to, let's get into it a little bit and have this healing sense of conversation. Like what ultimately led you to leaving where you were as a practicing school psychologist?
Well, I would say just as a plain word, is burnout. So for me, I have a personality that's very justice forward, and I'm INFJA, which is, if you follow Myers-Briggs type, I am the advocate, and that's just who I am. And I'm a fierce advocate as well. As Dr. TD says, I will fiercely advocate for kids. But I also, in the background, I hold a lot of identities that they could be very sensitive in the school system. I see some of the kids as myself a lot of the time, and I really take things personally. I mean, I'll be honest, I really take some of the stuff personally when it happens. And I think that was rubbing up against me a lot. And it got to the point where I just did not feel fulfilled anymore. I felt like the work that I was doing was more harmful than good. And that was just like on my mind heavy for a while. I would say it was probably on my mind heavy a lot during 2021, the spring of 2021. I was going back and forth with myself like, I really don't feel like I'm doing the best thing for these kids right now. I feel like I'm really just testing and placing. And that was really hard for me to take. Now, it might not be hard for a lot of people. My mature women out here, I was young. I just came straight out of school. So, I'm in early career for real. But for me, that was a lot. And I just couldn't do it anymore, to be honest. And when I told my supervisor, when I had the exit interview, I made sure that I said, it's not just one school district's fault. It's really the culmination of my experience and who I am as a person that's kind of led me down this path.
Now, you were an early career practitioner. About how many years would you say you were practicing?
So I was practicing for 3 years.
For 3 years, and all at the same school?
So my first, I call internship a year, so I wouldn't say 4. But, I was doing a lot on internship. I was everywhere. But for the 3 years, I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was at the same schools for 2 years, 2 schools. And then I was at different schools for my last year. But that was 2 of my years were during COVID. So you think about that, and that probably impacted my experience a lot too. But yeah, I was just an early career professional. I really won't even say it's mentorship. Like, I have phenomenal mentors, but I honestly think it is an individual decision. It was an individual decision for me to leave because I didn't feel like I was going to do any good. You got people in the school system for 20 something years, and some of them need to leave. Now
that's a fact. And they're miserable, stressed.
They're miserable. They're miserable, they're stressed, and they don't grow. Like their mind can't expand. And I was like, maybe this will be good for me. Like, if I do decide to come back, I'll feel refreshed. I'll have a newer perspective. I'll probably be more mature, able to articulate myself in meetings in a way that isn't, detrimental to the team. So I think for me, this pause is good. And it gives me more time. I mean, if I want to be honest, it gives me more time with School Psych Sistas as an organization. I'm able to do more with the organization because I have more time to dedicate to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that had to be such a tough decision. And I'm wondering if it really was a culmination of small things that led to your burnt out. And when I say small things, not diminishing it, but just minor things that, okay, I'm taking note of that, or okay, I see that. Okay, they're not listening to me. And it's just these constant culmination of things that you make mental note of. Or was there a moment where it's like, you know what? And you have you seen the meme where this guy and he just throw the papers up in the air? It's like, listen, y'all can have this because this ain't for me. I'm out of here. Which one was it?
When you say that, I honestly think it was both. Okay, so let me tell you what. I felt like, for me, it was a combination of small things. Like, the microaggressions, the micro insults. Just like, seeing kids done a certain way. And just total disregard and disrespect, just as a Black woman. Young Black woman in a professional space, right? But then COVID was like that. Like, okay, y'all, I'm telling you. Like, I am done. It got to a point where I think the biggest piece for me was being micro. I felt like at the time I had like a helicopter over me and people were just looking at everything I did. And I'm a person who likes autonomy a lot. So that really irked me. And then it was like, we're going to watch your every move. And I was like, I'm a grown woman. That was it for me. That was it. I was like, you know what? Y'all can have this. I'm grown. I'm going to do my job. I've been doing my job. Like, nobody can tell me how to do my job. So, yeah, that was it. for me.
So talk about the moment where you have your exit interview, and then assuming this was in person or even if it was virtual, that interview is over and you're done. What was that moment like for you where you say in your head, I'm finished? What was that moment like?
Well, I honestly, when I was at my exit interview, it was at a coffee shop, and I had a dress on, so it was a real interesting moment. It was sunny outside, we were sitting outside, and we were talking, and I was having epiphanies as we were talking. So during that moment when I was speaking with her, obviously leading up to it, it was a lot of trepidation, because I was like, I like this woman. Like, I honestly had no bad blood for anybody in my former school system, and I really liked the director of the program. She hired me. She felt like I was a great person, great candidate, and everything. So it was hard to really go into why I left with her. And I was trying to do it in a tactful way, because I felt like, this is somebody whose relationship I really want to keep and care about and respect a lot, for just even giving me a chance, right? But it's another moment where you need to be truthful. And so when we were talking, I was telling her about, all of the things that led up, those little things that led up to me making that decision. Made sure to say to her that it's not the district's fault, and also let her know that, there is some things that could be changed within the district, or some practices that, the specific department can do to make it better for women of color or young women of color who come in. And she took note of those. But afterwards, I felt like a sense of serenity and just peace, because I felt like I had did everything to the best of my ability. And I felt like I left no stone unturned as far as like giving feedback and just sticking with what I knew to be true for myself. And in the end, I honestly, my supervisor, she was the president of the state association, and she called me and was like, I still want to present you this award, because I still feel like what you're doing with School Psych Sistas, regardless of all the controversy in the schools, I feel like this was a part that needed to be recognized. And I appreciated that from her. I did.
Yeah, and it seems like you did everything right, going about it, providing that feedback, and leaving on good terms. But ultimately, while it was a tough decision, you making the decision that is going to lead you towards peace and serenity. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that you made that at year 3. We're going to count year 4, right? We're going to go ahead and count that internship year.
Internship year was...
Oh, yeah, it's a beast.
I was working.
Right.
I was working on internship year. Yeah.
But you made that choice instead of sticking into a place to where you could spend the rest of your life and not truly be happy. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I think another nail in the coffin, and this is not funny that I said coffin, but my grandmother had passed, right? And I told my team that, I told the special education team that I was like, my grandma passed or whatever. And for some reason, we were not agreeing on the kid. I don't know what it is. We were not agreeing on what should be done with a kid who just moved to America. But, we're just going to leave that alone. Mm-hmm. We were not agreeing what to do. And they were in the office really fussing with me. Like they were arguing with me. And I told my supervisor that. I was like, they were arguing with me, and they knew I was not in the mood. I literally shouldn't be even in school, because my grandmother just passed. So for me, I was like, I can't be at a place where people don't respect just something as, I don't know, big as someone grieving. So regardless of what the decision is for the kid, because ultimately you all have to say so anyway, and nothing bad will happen to the kid regardless, even if he gets services or if he doesn't get services, you're still wanting to argue with me about this particular thing. And it's not right. Yeah. I would never do that.
And I'm sorry that happened to you. And, you know, God has a peculiar way of pointing you in the right direction to make sure that you're taken care of, that you're not wasting your time for people that's going to take you for granted. So, and that pushed you to, like you said, having more time for School Psych Sisters.
Yes.
And I want to shift in and start talking about the platform, which I love. I'm a big fan. I'm a big supporter of. And part of the vision of School Psych Sisters is to see women of color in the field of school psychology flourish and thrive, which I absolutely love that we're talking about flourishing and thriving. I would love to hear, in your perspective, what does thriving mean to you?
So for me, thriving is beyond living. For me, it's just a surface level of living. It's just existing. And that's just like waking up, like I'm here. And it's not purpose driven. You're not feeling joy. You're maybe not even feeling happiness. You're just feeling at a state of just, you know, it is what it is, and that's life. You know, for me, thriving is saying that, hey, you know, I am experiencing life. I am taking challenges as they come by the reins. I am purpose driven. And everything that I'm doing is intentional in giving or a part of this greater good for my field, for my family, whatever that is to you. I think that's what thriving is. And for me, when I say I want women of color to thrive, I want us to, in my big imagination, in this field, what I want women of color to do is to be able to not only exist, not only say I'm here for a paycheck. And this is what I want for education too, to be honest. This is what I want for education too. I want people to be able to say, I'm not just here for a paycheck. I am here because what I am doing is super duper important for the students. And I wake up every day, and even though there's challenges, I am here to take them on and graciously in a way that is going to lend itself to a better world, a better field of education. And when I made School Psych Sisters, I don't think that a lot of us feel like that. I feel like some of us have defaulted into this, you know, this world is messed up for a better way of saying it. And I'm just here to be in it. You know, and that is not what I want. And I know we have a lot of things going on as far as like retention and, you know, turnover rates in school psychology, the national shortage that's just supposed to happen for all of the nation with mental health professionals, especially in the schools. So I know that we're, you know, some of us feel like we're just here. And that is what I don't want for us to feel.
Yeah, I would love to get your insight and perspective on how do we reconcile that, right? I just read an article from Dr. Proctor. She does, she's a legend.
The MVP, the GOAT.
Yes, the GOAT, seriously. The school psych GOAT.
The GOAT, man.
And you know, she does so much around recruitment and retention.
Yeah, she does. She's been doing it too.
Yeah,
she has been doing this work
for so long. And as I was reading through her article, and she was reflecting on the work from Dr. Scott Graves, the work, you know, it was sensational, and really pointing out some of the things that must change in the field of school psych for Black people to thrive. And some of the things that she was pointing out, the microaggressions, the lack of support, the persistent racism and systemic oppression, and all these things that we know have always existed. Shoot, the very premise of what our field was founded upon, right? When we're looking at administering racially biased assessment. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And and so it's like how, like, creating a platform such as School Psych Sisters and understanding the importance of recruitment, retention. But it's like, look, for my own well-being, like, I got to get out of here. Like, how can, like, what can we do? Like, what can we do to keep people in this field?
You know, that's a big question. And honestly, man, listen, when people ask me what I would do and they ask me, what would be your dream job, regardless of stress, what would that be? I always tell them it would be an educational consultant. And I always said that I would be sitting beside the president. And this is no joke. I'd always say I'd be sitting beside the president, feeding him information and just strategizing with different things that I think would help create a better education system, because we can't take school psychology out of education. It is literally a part of education. So that's where the basis of some of that change has to happen in order for us to see change within the field of school psychology. I mean, I would say it's a really big task. Essentially, what I think needs to happen, and people have always talked about this, is we just need to make education sustainable. And it's not been sustainable. Every piece of literature that I've read, education has not been sustainable in certain ways. There's a high turnover rate. It's always been a high turnover rate. Even interventions that we know can work for kids have not been working because we don't have the funding to make them work. There's no resources really to make them work in the school system. So it's really working around those things that will make things more sustainable in the system of education. And honestly, that does require more funding. That requires more funding, but that also requires dealing with some of the mindsets that we have in the school system.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that too. My friend and the vice president of School Psych Sistas just did her dissertation on I think it was cultural competence training and awareness of, just giving that to educators. And I honestly think she's going somewhere with that. Because I feel like while people don't like that, and they don't like it because they might say it's like, they're going to say it's critical race theory. Mm-hmm. But what I think at the basic level people need to do, and this is HR, this is on HR departments too, is to hire people with those mentalities already to put them in the school system. Like that also needs to be a HR or human resource effort initiative as well. There's certain things that you can do, assessments or whatever hiring practices that you can do to help ensure that your school system is built with people who actually understand. But right now we're at a place of scarcity in the school system, which basically means that, I don't know how to say this, but we hire anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We get.
Yeah.
we hire anybody. So it's not sustainable because we hire everybody who we can get. And we need to shift that to, we're not hiring everybody we can get. We're hiring people who really care about these kids and want to see these kids progress. And that's going to require more funding into the education system just in general. But those are bigger things. What can we do in school psychology? Just me thinking out loud, my first thought was for School Psych Sistas, I was like, we need to build a community. Because that's how we have always survived as a people. Mm-hmm. Like if you kept people on these little mountains like I felt like I was on when I first made the Facebook page, where I'm just like scratching my head and like pulling my hair, like they are going to leave because they don't have protective networks to help them kind of deal with the issues that are at hand. And that would have led to a lot of just turnover already in the field. I will not lie, people on the page do talk about leaving, but the thing that we try to do is encourage them. If they want to take that break, that's fine. But we also say, think about some things that you can do to remain in the field. Or if you do leave, make sure you come back or help the field in this way, get involved in this way, because ultimately we want them here.
Yeah. And how has it been for you since you've created School Psych Sistas with some of the programming? I know you all run a mentoring program. What has been the response of some of the programs that you all have created?
Yeah, so I will say this work is extremely hard. I don't know what it is. I was talking to my board about it and I was like, I'm not really sure. But the biggest detriment to this is that it's a nonprofit. And I was thinking, so even before, we went through a whole process and I went through a whole thing where I was trying to weigh my decision. Like, is this going to be a nonprofit or is this going to be more like a business? And Dr. Vera asked me that several times. He was like, what made you go for a nonprofit? And I was saying, because I don't own anybody's story and I don't want anybody to think that I own their story. If it truly is a group for this purpose, I want it to be for this purpose. And I don't want anybody to think I'm profit personally. off of their unique identities. Like, that's not something that I wanted to happen. But I will say it's been hard because with nonprofits, you have to raise the money, right? And I don't know if people like to admit this, and I don't want to generalize, but we tend to hold on to our money. Like, when I say we, like, people.
Go ahead and say it. This is Healing Centered Conversations. Let's talk about it.
We tend to, when we're asked to give, our demographic tends to not give as much, like, is what I will say. And so I've been up against that, like, even getting volunteers. And I've been up against the pandemic too. Mm-hmm. The pandemic has, stretched everybody thin. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of burnout. And so people can't really volunteer like they probably would be able to pre-pandemic. And then funds are low because of pandemic. So we have been trying very, very hard. Like, my group is very dedicated. I love my team. Hands down, they are my team. And I love them to death because without them, I don't know what I would do. But we've been trying to find different ways to kind of get over that because volunteering has been low. We had money. We met our goal in 2021, thanks to you and also thanks to our other donations and sponsors. But 2021 could look differently than 2022 depending on how everything shakes out. So we really need people's support. We're looking for a treasurer. So that's one of the big things that we need right now. We're also needing donations because this is a new fiscal year to help sustain us for the rest of the year. But what I would say is it's kind of difficult, to be honest. We're doing this work out of the goodness of our heart. Nobody on our board gets paid. So we're just working really, really hard, and we need everybody's support.
Yeah, and you're being very kind about it. And I think part of having these healing centered conversations is having honest conversations. Mm-hmm. Because we so often we don't talk about what it takes to run a nonprofit, mm-hmm. or the benefits of having a nonprofit versus a LLC or a corp or a S corp or the different, mm-hmm. business structures. And can we have a LLC and then have a charitable arm, so where we're giving a portion of our proceeds back? And I think so often, especially in the Black community, everything we do is expected to be charity, and we're also expected to carry the brunt of the work. And so it's this constant, let's give until we have nothing else to give. And then they will leave. And we're just stuck there like, hey, what about us? And then we never actually make any meaningful progress. And that can be when you look at the overall amount of wealth in the Black community. From the times of slavery, the inception of our country, we were around 1%. And you look at our current wealth and we're still hovering around a little over 1%. Or I just told you I read Dr. Proctor's most recent work, and we looked at even something as small as increasing, not small, but big in our field, increasing the amount of Black school psychologists. And historically, we've been around 2%, being generous. And we're at about 3.9, close to 4%. So 2% since the inception of our field. We have to be able to make radical change that really moves the needle. Why? So that we can make a difference in the work that we're doing. And I know I'm just kind of going off and nobody is probably asking for that. But I say that to say the work that you are doing is so important and necessary, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to support you all, not just in word, but in dollars as well, because it takes a lot to run a nonprofit and, mm-hmm. to do it good. And so I will ask you, if you could go back in time and restructure some things, how would you restructure it?
Well, actually, we did restructure it. Okay, so we had a recalibration meeting at the beginning of this year. We just had it on between myself and the executive board on the 23rd of January. And in that recalibration meeting, I think another reason why kind of leaving and then being able to bring that knowledge into School Psych Sistas is really good. Now I'm more business savvy because I left the field. So now I know a little bit about how to streamline processes and make them work and have efficient workflows and things like that. So in this calibration meeting, what we did was we made communication flows. So it's no longer me having touch points with everybody on my board. Like, we have a system now where the VP has her set of people and the president has her set of people that they have touch points with, and then they come back to me. We also have Trello now. Trello has been established, and that's what we use to kind of have our to-do list and our tasks so that we check off, and it keeps everybody in the workflow aware of what is going on in the organization, because obviously transparency is important for us to do this work, but also Trello helps us become more accountable to make sure that we are following up and we are doing the things that we said we're going to do. Because it can be real easy, because we all have full-time jobs, to kind of let School Psych Sister go by the wayside because we pour so much into our full-time job and our full-time work. So now this process makes it so everything's real transparent and we're holding each other accountable, which I feel like is really good. We've talked a lot about marketing and how we're going to make our social media presence known. And also we're trying to do a video promo, and our VP has been heading that. The other things that we thought about was actually delegating. We talked deeply about delegation in our recalibration meeting and how we can structure things in the committees to make them go smoother. Again, though, we need support. We need volunteers for the committee. So we were thinking about having like a volunteer fair and kind of getting people to just, come in that way and actually presenting ourselves to people and talking about ourselves, and then having people sign up and join where they feel like it's necessary. So all of those things, I didn't have any knowledge that I should do when I first started this. So another thing what people don't know is give business people and entrepreneurs grace. Okay, y'all, because I want to say this. I don't know what I was doing when I first started.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a fact. Just kind of going.
Make it up as we go. I promise you, I've never done so much paperwork in my life. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have, just the drive to learn more. Because otherwise, this thing probably wouldn't have got, it wouldn't have got started. It wouldn't have got off to where it is. I really feel like grace needs to be extended there. But those are things that I wish I would have done. Also, another thing I wish I would have done is none of the people on my team know a lot about nonprofit management and just overall organizational structure and how that's supposed to look. So I had a conversation with them. I think it was like maybe March, or it was like 5 months in to our inception. And I was like, I don't know why. I feel like we're not, getting how to do most of the stuff. I felt like I was repeating myself over and over again. But then in that conversation, I realized, oh my God, training is so important. Talent development is so important. Like, you honestly have to help them along the way because they didn't know anything about this. Out of the kindness of their heart, they're here. But here's another skill set that you can help them learn so that they can speak about it in different facets of their life and use it to leverage in other facets of their life. So I also had to figure out how to train. So we did in-services. We started in-services at the beginning of our board meeting. But, those are all the things that I wish I would have known prior to start.
You just learn as you go. Right.
I was like, man, yeah, you just learn as you go.
Now, I will ask you, since you mentioned all the things, what is it that our listeners, anyone who checks out this episode, what can they do to help? What can we do to support School Psych Sistas?
Yes. So the first thing is, I know that we are all in a place where it's, a pandemic and things are tough and it's hard. But any amount that you can give, any amount is appreciated.
Okay. Now listen.
He's about to stop me and be like, don't be asking for pennies.
Y'all had this meeting. Y'all recalibrated. You never know who listens to this platform. y'all have goals, right? Of what y'all need to meet. So put it out there into the atmosphere. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. But I'm just saying we gotta step outside. I always say, and my mom will vouch, a closed mouth don't get fed. So if you don't ask, the answer's always gonna be no. So put it out there for the people.
That's true. All right, so everybody, if you want to know our budget that we have to meet for this year, it's $4,000, right? Last year, our budget was like $2,000, which we met, we exceeded, which is great. This year, a part of that budget, that $4,000 that we're supposed to raise in our fundraising plan, $1,000 of it has to be individual donations. So we have to get $1,000 worth of funds from people who are just giving us money without us doing anything, right? And then another $500 of that has to come from us actually hosting fundraising events. And that means we're hosting an event and people give us money from that fundraising event. So if you all could be, I'm still going to say so kind. We need to get that $1,500. $500 from fundraising. So when we put on stuff, School Psych Sister, when we do stuff, please attend. Please give us money. And then that $1,000, that can be done by just going to schoolpsychsisters.org and hitting that donate button. And that money will go right into our account. Whatever that is, that will go right into our account, and that will count as individual donation. Things that we want to do with that money this year is we really want to have our recruitment fair. Last year, we weren't able to have our recruitment fair. This year, we want to have our recruitment fair. We also talked about, because it's tough to get these mentors and volunteers, we talked about paying volunteers and mentor a little gift of appreciation, whatever that may be, so that they can, give their time. So that $1,000 that you give will actually help contribute to that money that we would dole out. We also talked about, the scholarships, but Dr. McClure, I think you got us covered on that. So I think we are good in that way. But if you could get us to $1,500, we could take care of the rest.
And that's helpful to know. Like I said, we never know who's listening to the podcast or who's connected. And that's that social capital that we have to lean on with one another. And for our listeners, I've already contributed. I'm going to contribute. Again, I have no problem because I believe that deeply in the mission and the vision that you set. And I am always going to be a supporter of your platform, financially, emotionally, socially, whatever it is that you need from me. And I want to let you know that whatever it is, if it's advice, if it's wisdom, if it's a shoulder to cry on, if it's money, whatever it is, just like, hey, like, Doc, we need you, because I believe deeply in the work that you're doing. As we bring this episode to a close, it's the Healing Sister Conversations podcast. So if you could just in a sentence or two, what does healing mean to you?
Wow. So for me, healing is really like a multifaceted word. So when I think about healing, I don't like to just say, I'm healing from something. For me, that's the plain definition of the word. Like, hey, I'm healing from racial trauma, or hey, I'm healing from this sore on my arm. That's what that means. For me, healing is more about my purpose. So for me, I take it more as I'm healing. So when I say healing, I'm referring to other people around me and myself. So twofold. So when I heal, I recognize that my journey is going to be tough. Like, that's what I recognize. I know that others' journey is going to be tough. What I'm talking about as being healed is the point where you can have both of those recognitions, both the person that you are being healed internally and walking in a space of purpose regardless of challenges, but also that person is giving back and also leading to a greater purpose in the world. For me, when those two things intersect, that is a person who is healing. That is healing.
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And It's been a pleasure. I could keep talking for hours and hours, but is there any closing thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, it's definitely been a pleasure. Dr. McClure, thank you for having us on this platform. We definitely appreciate your support on this platform and also, in real life. For everybody who's listening and who has supported School Psych Sistas, we definitely thank you so much, and we thank you for hanging in there with us. Just on a personal note, thank you for my team. Thank you to Jerica, Bianca, to Renata, to Sung-un, also to Tommy, to Shakia. Thank you so much. And to our past treasurer, we also want to thank you so much for just giving your time. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey, but I intend to deliver on the promise that I made of helping women of color in the field of school psychology thrive. And I might bleed blood, sweat, and tears trying to do it, but I'm still here to see it through. So
I got you. As a school psych brother, I'm always going to do everything I can to uplift our school psych sisters. How can people find you? I know that I just came up with that. Like I just came up with it. I did. Bars. Right. For no reason.
For no reason.
How can people find you on social media and get in touch with you?
Yes, so definitely hit up Twitter at School Psych Sis. And I say sis, Lord Jesus, School Psych Sis, only SIS. And then on our Instagram page, not too active, but it's at School Psych Sistas. And we also have our own Facebook online community. If you search for School Psych Sistas in groups on Facebook, you will come to us. People, please fill out the screening questions. That is my ask. Yeah. I am not equipped to tell you whether you are a certain race or not. So please fill out the screening questions. We want to make sure the people who come in this group are actually coming here with purpose and have intention. So make sure you do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to get in. But we'd love to have you in that community if you need to be there.
And that's a private group, right?
It is a private group. So it's a closed group for women of color in the field of school psychology. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be looking out like, dang, man, I want to be part of it. But I'll let y'all have y'all space.
That's funny. And you can also go online to schoolpsychsisters.org and you'll see our page. It needs some updating, but we'll get there in the new year.
Very cool. Look, we got the email on lock, so that's official now.
Info@schoolpsychsisters.com.
Yes.
Info@schoolpsychsisters.org. .org.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much for this healing-centered conversation. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everyone.